I'm a big fan of learning through applied teaching, i.e., learning through experience, learning from people who have actually done the thing, right? Whereas when you go to university or college, you tend to get taught basically only theory. So, what's your view on applied versus theory as a learning mechanism?
Well, obviously, I think this is the 1,000-year-old question, right? And I'm just gonna back up and say, how did we're older, right? So how were we taught, right? It comes down to we were taught by maybe a mom or a dad where it's like, "Mommy, what's that?" You're like, "Oh, go touch it." You're like, "Oh." You're like, "Oh, I won't do that again." Or it's just like, "Hey, go out there and mow the yard." They're like, you need to be faster next time. How can you do it? So you used to learn a process. You used to learn how not to screw up. I don't know really what's going on. I don't have any kids of my own yet, right? But the thing about it is when you're dealing with uh, students, STEM, high school, college, where when I teach or when I mentor or whatever it is I do, um, first thing I'm always asking them, like, what do you think? Like everybody seems to want you to say, when I say, I'll give an example from my class, go out and do a field observation report. They're like, what should it look like? I'm like, what do you think? I'm like, so if you're on a job site, what would you look for? They're like, well, I don't know. I mean, literally, it's one of those things where, what are your normal ideas of what you're looking for when you're doing something? I'm very curious in the psychology of
Yeah.
this, right? Because you can teach someone how to be better, right? But I'm always interested is where they came from to where they are, how they even got here, and how they basically didn't just, in some piss stuff, just I don't know. It's just like how I'm really curious, and I'm gonna get to this in a second because I always rant here, right? But the thing is, it's just like you build up to something, and then you basically then you transform a process. Now the crazy part is like we're in the world of transforming this process to be better for someone. But how difficult is it for an old dog to learn new tricks, right? So every time I think about we're going to make something better by being practical, versus theory, right? I keep on asking, like, where has this gone? Where has this come from? And we're going to make it better. So you have to see it, you have to hear it, you have to smell it, you have to touch it, right? So it's just like if I always basically go back to the basic thing of like energy. When someone's like, "Oh, I'm working on an energy system," okay, do you know what a watt is? Do you know what a joule is? Do you know what a proton is, a neutron? I mean, do you know what power is, what isn't? Like when someone's like, "Oh, short circuit," it didn't complete the circuit, so it shorted.
Yeah.
No one ever see what I mean? It's like little things like that. We can go on and on and on. So it's just like, where do you start, right? Okay, back to my off tangent area here. But the whole thing is, it's like teaching, right? Learning. Everybody seems to want, just tell me how to fix it. You can't just go push a button. You actually have to understand the process of it. So back to the theory. The theory is the process. The theory is the piece of it, right? And then the practical application is in the field. Like, where do we have these anymore? Right? Do we, I mean, I feel like, do we have the core of engineering, kind of students? Like, they're going to go, when I take a young or a junior, professional engineer, architect, or commissioner, when they come with me in the field, they're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. It's okay. That's the point. Like, just watch, follow. You know what I mean? But at the point when I was talking about field observations, they all want to be told what to do perfectly. They don't want to think. They don't want to look it up. They don't want to like what am I really trying to accomplish? And I that's where I think that we have a missing piece here about, and this is going to sound good or bad. I think the youth, the generation rate of today, I think they actually want to learn. I think the last maybe 15, 20 years is like everybody gets a little medal and like, oh, everybody, nobody loses. I think that the competitive nature of the students now realize that the interest rates are up, the house prices are up, the cost of everything's up. I got to be better. I got to be more. I got to be competitive. I think that the students now, I think they want to learn. I think they want to take it apart. I have some really good students at Arizona State University, and they're really showing me a lot of gumption. And you know what? I think it's time we really start to go back to the roots. We have our brown bags, we have our teachings, we have our learnings, and we just give them all the information and we let them figure out stuff and we help them, we mentor them. How's that? So I
Yeah, I
think
agree.
both are needed.
I think you hit a nail on the head there a couple of times. One is people do want to know, and unless you've had some proper applied teaching, you expect everything to be perfect, right? You do an equation on a whiteboard, it solves, you learn how to solve it, and you think that's it, everything's done, no loose ends, everything works. And life isn't like that. When you see how the sausage is made in putting a building together, God almighty, is it chaos, right? And
But you got to touch it though. I mean,
yeah,
like when it comes to electrical, it's not source site. You got to run. You know what I mean? When it comes to mechanical, I mean, think about it. A motor is pushing out water, it's pushing, and it's turning the fans, pushing air. I mean, there's not too much stuff to this, right? When you look at the nuts and bolts of it, right? But when you break down into the science and the engineering of thermodynamics, of basically psychometrics, and when you teach someone, you're like, oh, sensible and relative and dew point, and then you start to put it together. I go, that wait, and then you start to look at the components of an HVAC system. You're like, compressor, condenser, evaporator, thermal expansion valve. You're like, you start to explain this, the refrigerant cycle, and like they're going, I never thought about it like that. Once you do it, like it makes sense, and then people can pick up on this, and you can train anyone.
This is why you always remember a good teacher. Most good teachers in engineering tend to either purposely or accidentally understand that most engineers are visually biased. So when you do diagrams and drawings and explain things that way, it goes in and it becomes understandable.
Yeah.
So look, my problem with, and having put one of my kids through a very expensive engineering school in America, which I'm still not freaking over, by the way, how much that cost and shit it was. But let's not go there because I'm going to lose my mind, right? Yes, there was a lot of theory and they came out being able to do high level mathematics. Awesome. That wasn't enough. They were so unprepared for the world that they went into because it was all theory and no applied.
Yeah.
And it needed to be 50. You need theory. Don't everyone gets triggered. You do need theory. But then you need to build on that some applied knowledge and learning, right? You need a 50-50 approach. And this is one of my big criticisms of universities. They need practitioners to come in and give lectures to like third and fourth year students. Say, look, this is what it's like when you're out there. This is how messy a building is when it comes together and everyone works together. This is problem solving. This is what a field inspection looks like.
So I always say this, I maybe I've said it before and I'm saying it again, is like in college or in high school, like that is when you should learn how to fail. You should not learn how to fail when you get out in the real world because everybody wants all this money. I mean, these kids that are coming out, they're going, oh, I deserve to get paid 100 grand. Oh my God, no. Sorry, everybody who's watching this. Like you don't know enough. But you know what? The demand it tells you that you should be paid this. Great, fine, get what you can. But learn as much as you can. So whenever we hire someone new or I work with a student or something like that, and it's 5 o'clock and I tell them, I go, I can't pay you to do homework. I can't pay you to do homework. Like, what does that mean? I'm like, I go, call me, where I work, I'm like, call me after 5 o'clock. I'll work with you. I'll stay on the phone with you. I'll teach you. I'll mentor you. But it's just like, you should know this. You put it on your resume, you know AutoCAD, BIM. Like if I was a hiring manager, I'd be like, great, open it. Wow, let's go through it. Okay, section. Okay, plan. Axon. All right, sweet. You know what I mean? No, it's not like that because the old school, we literally had to prove our value. We had to say, I can do this. I can help you. I can be an asset to you. Day one, I'm going to make you money. I mean, I think we're getting back to that because it's getting competitive out there.
I'd like to see the apprenticeship program come back.
Oh.
Yes, you do. You need academic training qualifications. You do. But also, let's be face it, you need a 2, 3, or 4 year, like under some old wise master's wing. So you're not going to blow up clients. You're not going to blow up jobs and you're going to learn. And when you fail, someone's going to say, that was wrong. Do it this way.
When I was at ASU years ago, right, we actually had labs that we actually touched and played electronic. We played with, different HVAC systems. I remember when in architecture as well, when we made concrete forms or plaster forms, right? we actually like made them. We made kickers, we made backers, we basically put rebars in. We wanted to see the condition of things, under different water conditions, vibrating conditions, and it's just like nowadays, I'm like, they're cutting everything. I don't know what's going on. I'm telling you, like, we need to have more lab-based practical applications. I would love to be part of those classes and teach them, because that is where the sausage is made. And that's how, Adam says it. So
Yeah, no, so to wrap this up then, what I would say is applied learning is as important, if not more
yes.
important than theory.